we wanted right at hand's width. We didn't want them to have to bend down, open a drawer, go up, stand up, change their position, leave the table. So it was really that frequency. So the more often you use something, have it right out in the open there where you're going to grab it. But if it's something you use daily, weekly, then the further they can be away from your station. So that really gave us a good tight list of what we wanted right out there, out in the open, and how they wanted to use it. Even from the wraps, like the small wraps that we have on there, the little ones, or, and then how close the other ones are and things like that. So yeah, it's a great exercise, and the team was fully engaged in that.
Rising above the buzz of ultrasonic cleaners and the clanking of stainless steel are the ideas and voices that are changing an industry. You're listening to the Beyond Clean podcast, the central nexus for the people, processes, and products that are improving our sterile processing world. Each week, we speak with frontline technicians, CEOs, engineers, and entrepreneurs with a common goal: to help you fight dirty, every instrument, every time. Whether you're tuning in for education or inspiration, we're glad you did. Now turn on those washers and turn up the volume. It's time to go beyond clean.
All right, clean freaks, welcome back to another season of the Beyond Clean podcast. A brand new season, hot off the press, fresh and shiny for you, season 29, Planet Assembly. I'm Bobby Parker. I'm going to be your host for this season. And as we're looking at assembly, we're kicking things off for you right over here at Beyond Clean. This first episode, we're going to be looking at that assignment in assembly that is the king of all assignments in sterile processing, the monarch, the monolith, the assembly table, where all of the assembly action happens. Or maybe in your department, you call it prep and pack or clean setup, where technicians touch instruments with their ungloved hands as they pour their hearts and souls into these trays to make sure that instruments are inspected to be safe for every patient that comes through the facility. So what is it about these assembly tables that we need to make sure is in order? How can we arrange them so that the technicians can do the best job that they possibly can do? Now, there's a lot of answers to that question that I just asked, but for today's episode, I'm bringing in a guest who has gone through a transformation project in her department to take their assembly tables from a state that caused injury for employees and was disorganized, and what the transformation project looked like to the standardized and sustained assembly tables that she has in her department today, and what impact that has for patients. So if you've got some disorganized tables in your department and you're frustrated with what to do about it, this is the episode for you, bringing in a world premiere expert on this topic to talk to you about what she did in her department and what you can do in yours. So right after this short break, we will bring in Jenni to talk to us about assembly tables. We'll be right back.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to Beyond Clean, the global voice of sterile processing.
Joining me now in studio is Jenni Gibbs, manager of Central Sterile up in North Dakota. Jenni, good to hear your voice again. Thanks for joining the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. This is one of my passion topics as well. So I'm super excited. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm not surprised to hear that, Jenni. Most of the time that we get together and talk, you've got so much passion in what you bring to your work. And so not surprised to hear that assembly tables are one of the many passions on the Jenni Gibbs list. Now, you're no stranger to the Beyond Clean show, but we may have some new listeners tuning in with us this week. So, Jenni, to get us kicked off here, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what your experience in sterile processing has been like up until this point?
I have been the manager of a sterile processing department for 11 years now, and I was new to sterile processing coming in from that, and really excited just to work with the team in that time. We've turned over the team. We've gotten a highly successful team, remodeled our department. We just opened up a new hospital, so had all of these amazing opportunities. But what is really why I'm so passionate about this is the team and the employees and what we give back to the patients. And it's just the most amazing profession I've ever been associated with. So this is my end game now. Sterile processing is my heart. So
yeah, I love that. Most of us don't find sterile processing on purpose, but often the ones of us do, we stick around on purpose. And so it's good to hear that story. Jenni, the last time that we talked on the Beyond Clean channels, I believe was the expert series for borescopes. So if you're out there and you want some advice on borescopes, Jenni runs a fantastic program at her facility, has a lot of really good insights there on borescopes. And we may end up talking about borescopes a little bit along the way or even later in this season. But today, kicking off this season on assembly, I want to start with the most iconic piece of equipment in the assembly area, and that is that prep and pack table, our assembly stations. Now, when we got together last and we're talking about your department, you mentioned that you've done a lot of things with the assembly tables in your area and made some improvements. And so I'd like to draw some of that out in our conversation today. So why don't you get us started and tell us a little bit of the background of the story of transformation that happened in your department, particularly with respect to your assembly tables.
It's wild. I was trying to, in prep for this, I was trying to think and remember like what they used to look like. And it was so hard. And I was trying to remember it. And I think we blocked it out because it was kind of like PTSD. Like we didn't want to remember what those old things looked like. Again, 11 years ago when we came in and I came in and engaging the team and some of the biggest things that were pain points for them. And these instrument assembly tables, they were like, I believe truly, honestly, they were from like 1970, 1980, probably when we started the hospital. Just big metal, static, standing, like linen folding table type things. No upgrades. Like it's nothing like you would think like instrument assembly should be on. So it was absolutely archaic almost and just really as basic as you could get. Straight stainless steel metal table. And that was it.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I've set plenty of trays on a stainless steel flat table with nothing on it but a bunch of little plastic bins to hold all your indicators, and that's as fancy as we got. I was thankful at least that those tables were stainless steel and wipeable. I've been in departments with wood tables, with laminate countertop tables, things that we can't clean appropriately, and so at least we had that going for us. But I can relate to that. Now, getting an assembly table, probably like the line that the mattress salesman always throws your way when they say like, you're going to spend a third of your life on this thing. Like, let's be thoughtful about the one that we pick out. So much of what a sterile processing technician does and the pride they bring to their work happens at that station. And so much of what we count on for quality in terms of inspecting the instruments to make sure they're functioning appropriately, that they've been cleaned appropriately, that they're packaged appropriately. So much of that quality happens at that station. And so obviously there's some things that you've done to try to shift away from just the flat stainless table with little bins and cupboards of indicators in it. But I'm curious, what led you to make that transition from the way things were to the way things are now? Was it particularly staff discomfort or staff complaints or a vision for something you saw at a show? What kicked that off?
I didn't have the honor of seeing anything a show at that point. Like that's like a lot of people in the industry, you don't get to go out and see. And that's not the first thing. It was 100% the first immediate initial thing that drove us to look at those inspection tables was staff injuries, staff feedback, from major injuries to just minor injuries like static standing, not having just those repetitive injuries. The staff, when we interviewed them, they left work sore. They were tired. They had back strain. They had arm strain. And then we had some pretty major significant injuries too. So we really we don't want to injure our employees. And so that was really kind of the first thing we looked at. And there's so much time spent there. We had to make sure that they were appropriate for the staff to use. So that was the first thing.
Sure. Yeah. So it was a conversation then around ergonomics. And so what have you done with the workstations from an ergonomics perspective just to make it more comfortable for the team and help preserve some of that human motion in a more natural state?
Blessed to get height adjustable, ergonomic, updated workstations. There was really no other clear path. So when you looked at ergonomics and value and replacement, that you really just had to get something that checked all the boxes for ergonomics specifically. So fully height adjustable, independent workstations. They have static standing things on them. So like they have a footrest so you can change your ergonomics. We involved OT. Do we need these? Do we not? Also thought about the reach and overreaching and things. So like things not too tall, not too low. Do you have to bend down? We really wanted, the vision was really to have everything just right where you wanted it. You could sit, stand, or stoop on a stool if you wanted, but you had everything you needed immediately for that immediate assembly at your fingertips, and you didn't have to ergonomically strain or get tired or overextend yourself.
Sure. Yeah. I want to pick up on one thing you mentioned in that process was involving OT and the discussion of, and I assume you mean occupational therapy.
Correct.
Involving some ergonomics experts and some workplace injury experts in that discovery process of how we're going to set up our stations, which ones we might buy. I'm curious, what was that collaboration like? How did you reach out to them, and did you get any insights along the way from that team that were valuable to you?
They are so valuable. And it was as simple as when we had an injury, checking the box, or on your annual employee health thing that we have to fill out in our organization, ergonomics, do you want an ergonomic assessment? And so they really came in and gave us a lot of data. And then they gave that to us as a department so that we could really help some of those informed decisions. But then two, they come in now on the backside. They'll come in and even help somebody set up what is the perfect height for them. You should have this kind of a stool or a chair, or, could you do, they really help the team use that equipment to its max benefit to reduce injuries. And so part of it was just the mindset of these are our partners and bringing them in and having the team not feel like it was a negative thing that I had to just have somebody come in and tell me how to adjust my workstation or my chair. The other flip side is there are tons of tools that they have along with our work injury team on grants and some things like that they could do to help us get some of the equipment we need. There is a huge push out in the world of safety for organizations to have ergonomic equipment and have safe places for our staff to work. So it's a marriage made in heaven, honestly.
Yeah, there you have it. Maybe a partner you didn't expect to hear brought up on the call today. But yeah, that sounds like a great path forward. The other thing that I know about you, Jenni, is that you love to collect data. And so I'm curious, around these conversations of employee injuries, were there any examples or data that was helpful to you in getting the ergonomic workstations pushed through along the way?
Yes. Short answer is always yes. You always have data. It's how you choose to leverage it and use it, and then involve the partners needed to do that. And it initially started with just the amount of injuries we had, and then break down to the type of injuries, and that over per year, over the number of staff you have, you can really say, hey, we're injuring in the last 2 years, we've injured every employee twice by the numbers, or we've had this many missed day work injuries. Your organization will listen to missed day work injuries have a cost associated with them, and modified work or having somebody out on things, like all of those things are tracked and traced by the organization, and they have a financial impact to them. So it's really helpful in getting an ROI, return on your investment, for justifying some of that equipment.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And I've begun to wonder this, and I imagine some others are well. Can you tell us a little bit about the size of your department? Like, how many stations are we talking about? How big of a project was this?
Initially, we changed out to have, I think, 6 assembly desks at the one location, and then 4 at our other processing department. So we have 2 major reprocessing centers. Now, as we've advanced and we've used these same desks, everybody sees them, and then they're like, oh, so even our OR liaison, at the lead desk, or on our supply team where they're doing supply inventory, or case, when the cases come down and they're re-inventorying the case carts and stuff, we've put them throughout everywhere. So I think right now at our main hospital, we have, I'm doing some quick math, I think we have 15 tables. And then at our South Campus location, our other location, we still only have the 4 or 5, excuse me. So they're where every place that the team sits and stands or works independently, whether it's instrument assembly, our sterilization desk is a height adjustable, one of these same exact tables, again, so they can adjust, because you are standing there and working at them all day long, even if the work is a little bit different. So we have them everywhere. Everywhere there's a desk, that's what we have.
No, that's fantastic. I'm pulling on some memories that you admitted were quite a while ago, but I'm curious, was there anybody along the way who grumbled and said, man, I wish we had the old tables back, or like, I prefer the way that we did it before? Cause I mean, they're not perfect, or at least the ones that I've used, the ergonomic tables, like sometimes wrapping can be a bit more difficult and things like that. Did you have to push through any of those kind of cultural things?
We pushed through some cultural things, not so much. I mean, our stuff was so outdated. Nobody wants that stuff back, but they want them different. Why from the lighting, does it have to be that bright? Or can I put this here? Do we have to have them standardized? So it's more the use and flow of it, or where they're located, or not using it appropriately, or they want their own customizations to it. But there's such a fire about them, and everybody truly, if they don't have them, or like the height adjustment breaks, like it is a negative. So there's not too many negatives and people wanting to go back, because they truly are engaged in the lean aspects of it, but also the employee safety aspects of it. So it's little things, but no, nobody wants to go back to those old tables.
Okay. Well, just curious. Well, I think that's a great segue. We've been talking a lot about ergonomics, and this is a huge topic. We could continue for the rest of the episode talking about ergonomics. I admire the passion for not only how do we keep the patients safe, but also the passion for how do we keep our team members engaged and safe, and maybe even bigger than just safe, because obviously we don't want anybody to have a workplace injury, but sometimes it's just, working on a table that's not optimized for your size is just unpleasant. And so you may end up losing somebody just out of a morale. They would rather work in an environment that's not like that. And then you lose the experience and the knowledge and start creating skill problems in your department. It has an impact. And so I admire the deep look into ergonomics, but setting up an ergonomic workstation is like many things in the implementation of it. Like just buying the table and putting it in there and telling people to set it up however you like often does not get the results that we're looking for. So what was that transition process like for you? And what are some of the things that you've done to make sure that they're set up well, particularly with respect to where do all the supplies go? What do you put in the little pull-out drawer that comes in there so you don't find like newspapers and sodas in there?
Yep.
Like how do you get it set up?
The first thing we did really with the team and engagement was really set that goal. What do you want these to look like? So it was their vision. This is their new workstation. They were excited to get them. We wanted to keep that and have that happening. But so we really all had just a simple set of aligned goals. One, we wanted it ergonomic, no injuries. Two, we wanted it cleanable and wipeable. So we didn't have any like dust falling in or just things that make it not seem perfect for them. That would compromise safety for the patient. But we really, the next thing was we really wanted it just perfect for instrument assembly. The main thing, we wanted that desktop completely clear. We wanted room. We didn't want it cluttered with stuff again. So we wanted to think about where everything went on the table, either up, down, vertical, in, so that desktop was clean. So first thing was just keeping that goal, and then that was a good lens for the team to work through. Next, then we did truly a full 5S. So 5S is sort, set, shine, standardize, and sustain. I live this all the time. I love it. But we sorted everything and just did an exercise with the team. Did we need it? Did we not? How many? Just what's on here and what's cluttering all of this stuff up. Then we really looked at the set, where we were going to put everything. And that really was the thing to think about was the frequency of use. So the things that they used every assembly, we wanted right at hand's width. We didn't want them to have to bend down, open a drawer, go up, stand up, change their position, leave the table. So it was really that frequency. So the more often you use something, have it right out in the open there where you're going to grab it. But if it's something you use daily, weekly, then the further they can be away from your station. So that really gave us a good tight list of what we wanted right out there, out in the open, and how they wanted to use it. Even from the wraps, like the small wraps that we have on there, the little ones, or, and then how close the other ones are and things like that. So yeah, it's a great exercise, and the team was fully engaged in that.
That's awesome. So for anybody who's new to that 5S terminology from lean manufacturing, take like maybe 2 minutes to try to summarize. I'll take a swing at this, Jenni, and then you fill in the gaps for me. Okay.
Sounds good.
So the first one is sort. So that's all about getting the things out of the area that don't belong. So, if you were to walk up to any assembly station, you may find all kinds of supplies there that maybe aren't intended to be there. So sorting out between the things you need and you don't need. Second is set in order. The things that we do need, where are we going to put them? And so that's that location-based discussion that Jenni was just describing. And then shine, make sure that it's clean, but not just for the sake of cleanliness, keeping it clean so that whenever you find spills, soils, or clutter, that causes you to investigate what's causing this clutter and you can address it. But if everything's dirty all the time, the clutter doesn't stand out to you. So there's nothing to work from there. The next one would be standardized, which would be to make sure that all the stations work the same way, right? And then the last one is sustain. What processes do you put in place to make sure that this order doesn't revert back into chaos? And if you walk through all 5 of those steps with your assembly stations, you can accomplish something that I think is pretty great. How did I do, Jenni?
You did great. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely perfect. Yes.
Okay.
I would just say with that shine too, it's how do you maintain that? So it's like, did you do cord management at the table so the cord isn't there collecting dust? It's little things that I think about with the shine. And then the sustain can take on a life all of its own depending on the size of the lean project you're doing. But for us, it was really setting up standard work. What are the tasks at the end of the day or at the end of your shift? Everybody needs to wipe off your station, and then daily, do we stock and how do you stock that and what do you stock? And then weekly, is it on a cleaning schedule for that high dust thing, and then we're signing it off for compliance. So that sustain was about cleaning and then also supply. So I love sustain.
Well, you
I love everything.
you kind of have to in order to keep one of these projects going. So I went through a similar project at the assembly stations in the department we were working in because we were facing some of the quality related issues that could be fixed with a 5S station. Things like missing instruments that nobody can find it. And we find it in a weird corner of a workstation that someone set it there, not with any ill intent, but it just didn't stand out because of the clutter. I'm curious, are there any things like that you were trying to address in your department with this 5S project? And what some of those measurable benefits have been for the team having an organized, standardized, and sustained workstation?
A lot of them are honestly what I call like that compromised sterility or events, things that hit the OR. So oddly, missing indicators or missing protection tips on things because they're all right there and they are easily grabbed. They don't have to go find the right tip for the right kind of instrument but like it's the indicators are like right there. So you can't miss them now. You don't have to go somewhere and open it up. And I would say weird things like a pen left in a container or, things that shouldn't have been in there that you're working and it's there and where do you put it and some things like that. So I think the stuff it's right what's in there. The other big thing that was really odd was looking at our contaminated events with instrument inspection. I can't stress enough that one of the biggest surprises was the lighting. Before we didn't have lights on our table. And so to have the actual right lighting and then the magnification, lighted magnification that just swings over on an arm and we catch so much more and they can see so much more of what's going on with those instruments. So, and then eye strain and headaches and fatigue, some of that stuff you don't think about as necessarily ergonomic, but it really is like eye strain and headaches and neck and just some of that. So the team, our efficiency and efficacy of our instrument inspection increased dramatically. So that was another big benefit that I didn't even have on the radar.
Yeah. You mean if you give people the tools to do the job and you make the tools easy to use, they get a better job done?
What? I know. Imagine that.
That's fantastic. All right. So you've got lighted magnifiers and lights over the table. Any other pieces of equipment that you set up at each of the stations beyond just tip protectors and indicators?
We don't have borescopes on every table, but we do have them at the end of the pod. So again, proximity, but the computers, we went to bigger computer screens. They're mounted on an arm. They're up off the desk. We've got different scanners and some printers right there. So we really standardized our IT thing for our instrument tracking system, which makes it even touch computer screens we did so that they can just click on the picture of the camera to get to the photo of it instead of having to click on the mouse and things. So some little things like that to make sure that our instrument tracking system was easy to use and standardized too, as well as that. So that again increases their efficiency with looking at instruments in that instrument assembly area. That was a big one. And that was about it. They're pretty stripped down. The other thing we did put on there was a nice standardized pack for instrument inspection, like with the bands and the things to look at the sharpness and things like that. So everybody on every table knows where your ruler is and this for measuring and your bands for cutting and checking and things like that. So that was another thing that was a nice standardization, because before you'd have to go find it and where was it, and it was at one central station. Well, not everybody's going to go check it and use it. So the more of that stuff you can bring, again, if they should be using it on every set, it needs to be at the table.
Yeah, that makes sense. Making the most of human motion, draw out the spaghetti chart. Where are we walking around and why? And try to limit the spaghetti. Keep them, keep them there at the station. Now that makes a lot of sense. One of the stories that I wanted to share around a similar experience, kind of underlining some of the things that you said with respect to quality gains from doing this project. When we standardized all of our workstations, the bins that had tip protectors and indicators and little paper sterilization bags and all the things that we had as supplies at the table, they were in different spots at every table. And we standardized it with the intention of left to right, the sequence with which you would need to grab them when you did a tray. So we made sure indicators were, number one and chip protectors were number two and so on down the line. And then the locks for the rigid container were all the way at the end of that line so that you could just functionally work from left to right on every tray. That helped us quite a bit with the missing indicator problem, because people always knew, at every station I go to, just work left to right on every tray that we have. And that helped quite a bit, being able to work kind of alongside people's natural intuition rather than counting on them to use critical thinking on every tray to remember to grab the indicator from wherever it came from. The other one was the issue of high temp and low temp indicators getting mixed up. Every now and then we'd have a low temp tray get sent up with a steam indicator in it, right? And we had them together in the same bin with a divider in it. We made the decision we were going to put all of our low temp items in the pull-out drawer. So it's a very conscious decision that when you pull that drawer out, you have left steam world and you're living in low temp world here in my drawer. And that has your tape and your indicators and everything you need for that tray. And then when you're done with it, you close that drawer and you're back into your 80% workflow of just steam things in front of you. Those two things really helped us a lot on our quality bits. So I don't know if that helps anybody out there as they're trying to think through these things, but lots of things you can do with that and organizing your workflow to make it easier for folks.
I love that. We didn't think about that, but the indicators for us are right on the right. So they're the first thing you grab, they're right above, so kind of the same thought process, but we didn't consciously do it like you did. And so I'm thinking about that. So you gave me some takeaways I might take back here, because it's a constant PDSA, of evolving these and working at that. We did have we did destandardize two tables in our location, and one of them is our low temp table. So we have one table that's set up right through the pass-through window, because most of the stuff that goes through low temp comes through the pass-through window, not all of it, but some of it, but that work is kind of funneled over there. So that table has that stuff set up differently. And then we have a different one set up for we support a lot of clinic locations. So it's a lot of peel pack and things. So that one is set up a little bit differently with the spools of peel pack and some things like that they use more often than the other tables. But the rest of it is standardized. And we did separate the indicators like you did, but yeah, good call.
That makes a lot of sense. All right. So as you said earlier in the interview, the value of doing this is often, or the result you're going to get out of this is often as good as your sustain process. So could you give us a couple of practical things that you found to be really helpful once you've set everything the way that you like it to sustain it and make sure it stays that way so that 6 months from now, you're not right where you started?
The first one is standard work. Standard, everybody agrees this is the standard work. So daily, I'm doing this. I'm wiping off my station at the end of the day. Every day there's daily tasks. Somebody goes in and fills X, Y, and Z. Twice a week, if we order wraps and fill things, like those are our days where we fill the wraps and the items on the thing, and then we go and order what we need for the department. So that helps maintain our overall inventory and stuff, but it really keeps those tables constantly at a ready state. So the sustain part is that. And then that documentation, we have to document that we've done that compliance piece and we track that. And so we monitor that, who did it, who didn't, and some things like that, especially like the weekly cleaning and some of those tasks. I would say the engagement of the team, if something new comes up or somebody has an idea and it's just not working, or we're doing something to talk about it and to do that refresh and that PDSA and look at it. Hey, is there anything we want to change on these, and getting that consensus? So that helps keep it sustainable because people are invested in how it looks and how it feels to them. And they still have a voice ongoing if something needs to change.
So for any of those sustaining processes of documenting if all of our compliance cleaning happened and things like that, is that all done by leadership, or do you have any kind of table champions on your team that are managing that? Like who is the right person to be running that? Because I could envision a scenario where a department might end up as manager against all the techs, and they're just frustrated saying like, guys, we got to clean up our workstations, you know?
It's standard work and we all agree on it. So leadership does have a role to hold people to their standard work, but it's really the team's, that's part of your job is to do your standard work for your shift every day. It's no different. You have to do these, how many steps when you assemble an instrument or you check an instrument. It's just part of it. We have all of our documentation in a SharePoint. And so staff, every shift, they know exactly what it is by area. And some stuff is daily, some stuff is weekly, some stuff is monthly. So whether it's checking out dates, the washer tests in the morning of the washers. So our team owns that. Our techs own their compliance and their documentation, and they want that to be 100%. We have champions just naturally within the team. It's an expectation at shift report out, handoff communication. I didn't get this done. I did get this done. You ask that question, just like too, if you have any sterilization loads left to result or something, like what's hanging out there. So it's part of that handoff between your team. It's just a culture with this is the standard work and this is where you document the work you did. And it's all reportable up, and they see at the end of the month the quality goal and where we're at and what's our compliance with our compliance tracking, and they want to get it. And if there's a miss or a follow-up, then that's just individual feedback from the supervisor. But it's not a we-they situation, that it's not leadership against the team. And it can't be for it to be successful. It has to. The big connection, I think, too, with that is having the team understand the why it's important. Seeing the benefits, understanding the benefits to them, to our patients, why we have to have things clean and without dust bunnies and things. So once you connect the whys, then the team is amazing at following through and giving correction and helping their teammates be successful too.
Yeah, I love that. You can get there. I know that there's somebody out there listening with their fingers in their hair right now, just frustrated at how many things we have to document in our departments. And it's like, I've got to document cleaning my workstation too now. But there is, like you said, there is value in sustaining that process. If you're not going to measure it, it's not going to improve. And so you've got to collect that data, set some targets, and make sure that you're meeting those. Jenni, these conversations always go by way too fast. But before we wrap it, I want to close with just kind of going back to the beginning. What advice would you have for a department that is considering changing their workstations, either from a flat table to an ergonomic one, or maybe even more relevant one that they don't have the budget to change right now, but they just want to make what they have work better? Do you have any advice for good first steps to take?
First step is just asking the hard question. Does your team have the tools that they need to do their job, and are they safe doing it? And that's just that lens and that driver. I think second step is engage your team in the process. It can't be a we, they, them pushing down. They have to own that and want that and be engaged in that. So make sure, a great way, like I always say with other things I've spoken about or that I, talk about, is start small. That's the key for success. It doesn't have to be this big whole thing, replacements and all of this. Work on just your indicators. Like you said, separating out the two types of indicators, or putting the things in a row, or getting some clutter off the desk, and having the team really engaged in that. An easy way to do it is, I also say, to look at what is the root cause when you're having an issue, and get down to that. Is it because the desks were cluttered, or are the injuries because of this? And so look through things from that through a lens. I always look through everything through a multi-view lens, like regulatory, safety, compliance, budget, just how could changing one or two little things impact things? And a lot of times then, once you get some of those answers, it's quite easy to make your return on investment. People pay attention, upper leadership pay attention if it's a regulatory risk, or if it's a compliance issue, or if we're paying so much out per injuries and that stuff. So it really helps drive your ROI for some of those bigger things. But just start small and ask your team, what's getting in their way? What's the rock in their shoe? How can you help them get through an issue that you're having as a team, instead of a negative, you're not doing this, truly asking, like, another exercise is a 5 why. Why, you ask why 5 times as you're getting through it down to an issue, and it's, I didn't have the right lighting. I couldn't see. My eyes were strained, or this was in my way. I couldn't wrap the pan, or it rubs against this because I don't have enough workstation space. So you can really get down to some of those answers and help drive some pretty impactful change with just minor little changes.
That's really great advice, Jenni. As I hear you talk, as every time that we've gotten together, I get this picture in my mind of a leader who is kind of the fullback for their football team. The guy who's doesn't get the football a lot, but they're knocking down the linebackers so that the guy with the football can run. Like that's what you're describing, is what are the obstacles keeping our team from succeeding, and how can we get those obstacles out of their way? And I think that's really admirable. Thanks for walking us through what your workstations look like. I hope this has been helpful for our listeners who are maybe trying to rein in the chaos a little bit and get some standardization for their team to help them succeed. If you want to talk more with Jenni about your assembly table problem, Jenni, what would be the best way for folks to reach out to you?
Email, absolutely. And Bobby, I'm hoping you can attach that at the end of this with some materials, or reach out to Beyond Clean. They can connect you, however that would work, but happy to share my email and have that out for everybody.
Yeah, sure. So as bonus material for this episode, we'll make sure to attach maybe a picture of one of Jenni's workstations if you need a little bit of inspiration, and we'll get that email information in there as well. Jenni, that's going to do it with the time that we've got for today's conversation. Made me curious to talk even more about the ergonomics piece, but that's going to do it for today. Thanks again for joining the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
That was Jenni Gibbs, manager of Central Sterile in North Dakota, talking to us about the assembly tables, that unassuming central piece of equipment that we have in that assembly area, and how impactful it can be if we get that station either right or wrong. Gosh, as we reflect on that episode, and as I'm closing this out here, I think the piece of this conversation that I didn't expect the most was that partnership with occupational therapy and some ergonomics experts for getting things right in the department, making sure that we're limiting that potential for human injury. I think that's a really valuable place to get started. If you're still struggling to figure out how do we get through the purchase request for some ergonomic workstations. Gosh, they even have ergonomic sinks these days with flexible plumbing. I don't know if any of you have seen those in departments out there, but ergonomic everything. And so maybe reach out to an ergonomics expert in your facility and have a survey done of your department. Connect with employee health and pull the records from workplace injuries that you've been dealing with, and see if maybe that's a good starting point. I hope this has been helpful for you in getting started. I want to underline Jenni's exhortation as you're getting started in the journey of making your workstations work for you in a more organized way, to start small and involve the team. What I love about Jenni's situation, and why we often keep having her back to talk about what she's doing in her department, is that collaborative approach she takes with her technicians. So figure out what's really going on your workstations, figure out what everybody wants to do about it, come up with that agreed upon plan, and get started, even if it's something just as small as moving the indicators. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Beyond Clean. We love talking with you on Mondays about it. If you've got a future topic around assembly that you'd like to hear us talk about, feel free to send that over to info@Beyond Clean. But until we talk to you again next time, we'll encourage you, as we always do here at Beyond Clean, keep fighting dirty.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Beyond Clean. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing to Beyond Clean on your favorite podcast app, or by downloading the smartphone app on iPhone or Android. Simply search for Beyond Clean in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@beyondclean.net. We look forward to hearing from you.